Praise the Lord, everyone. I'm so thankful for Brother Ben and the worship team. And I know I put a little extra work on them if I'm speaking, because I'm like, you can take your time, sing an extra song or something, or we'll get out of here a little too early. But I do appreciate them, and it was so fitting. Actually, seems like every time that, before the word comes forth, how many times spot on that the songs are with the word that's, that we're getting ready to hear. So it was, he's already touched on some of the things that I'm going to speak to you on tonight. But I do love him. I'm thankful for my church family, my pastor, and it is a privilege, to get to be in front of you again today and speak to you. And, I thought how blessed, and I've said this many times, how blessed we are. I've enjoyed these last several weeks, so much of the different ministers that's been speaking to us, and I'll go, but I consider myself the least of those. But if you know me, I'll say it again, that I won't keep you long though, so it won't be bad long. If you want to, or I think they're going to put my first scripture on there, I'll be speaking from Luke chapter 22, verses 31 and 32. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. Verse 32, but I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. If I could speak to you just a few minutes today, I'd like to talk to you about the threshing floor. It is a frequently used biblical metaphor and is a common sight in the Middle East. The threshing floor was a key part of agricultural process. The grain that was harvested would never be ready to market unless it had first passed through the threshing floor. It was the threshing floor was where the good was separated from the bad. The wheat was distinguished from the chaff. What is chaff? It's a lightweight, inedible part of wheat. It's no good. It has no value. Basically useless. This process was fairly simple. The cut stalks of grain were spread on the flat stone threshing floor, and a heavy sled of boards and heavy stones were pulled over the wheat by a team of oxen. Process of threshing would separate the heads of grain from the stalks. However, when it was finished, the threshing floor was littered with chaotic mixture of grain chaff. Some good, valuable, and unusable grain, and some usable grain, and some worthless waste that simply served to diminish the value of the whole harvest. But it is in the second step in the process that helps separate the valuable from the worthless. The harvester would stand on the threshing floor with a shovel and begin to toss the broken, bruised stalks of wheat into the air. And as it rose into the air, the wind that blew across the threshing floor would catch the lighter chaff, the stalks, the leaves, and it would blow them aside while the heavier grain would fall back to the earth at the feet of the harvester. This process required wind. Threshing floors were established where the breezes were most likely to blow. Places like large open fields, on the top of hills, or wind-swept sides of mountains quickly became places for threshing floors and were used for that purpose for generation after generation. They became highly valuable places, They were well known and were often used as meeting places or landmarks because everyone knew where these threshing floors were. Because of the process of separation that was accomplished on the threshing floor, it quickly became a frequently used biblical symbol. God seems to be drawn to the threshing floor. As a matter of fact, you may be or may not be aware that when God tested Abraham's faith, he told him to take the boy and everything he needed for the sacrifice and set out on a journey to a mountain that God would reveal to him. God led Abraham on a 3-day trek to a mountain named Moriah. And there on the heights of Mount Moriah, at a wind-swept flat place on the side of a mountain, Abraham built an altar unto God upon which to offer his promised son. And it was at the hand of God that intervened and spared the life of Isaac, but not until the faith of Abraham had been tested. That same wind-swept flat where the wind of a severe trial and a test blew through Abraham's life would later become used as a threshing floor for successful generations. And this would remain so until David committed the grievous error of placing his trust in the sheer number of his armies, and God sent a terrible plague into the land. But as David realized his wrong and sought a place of repentance, the prophet of God would instruct him to go to that same windswept flat and build an altar unto God. And on that day that David purchased Ornan's threshing floor and sacrificed the oxen that had been used for the threshing floor unto the Lord. In that act, he stopped the plague and spared the nation. But he also learned a valuable lesson. The source of David's strength was not in the size of his armies or in the number of his chariots. The source of his strength was God. The fundamental truth was reinforced on the threshing floor. One day, a few years later, Solomon would follow in his father's footsteps and lay the foundations of the house of God upon the threshing floor that David bought from Ornan. The exquisite glory of Solomon's temple would be built in that same windswept flat on the heights of Mount Moriah that had long been established as God's threshing floor. So it comes as no surprise tonight that when Jesus employed the metaphor of a threshing floor when he began to warn Peter of the danger that lay before him in our text. I believe that there's a significant lesson to be learned from the threshing floor that is applicable to the life of every one of us. We jump into the text with the startling and discouraging revelation. Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. Now, I don't know about you, but if somebody told me that, or especially if God told me that, wouldn't be, exactly what you wanted to hear, right? Satan desires you. The original language says it even a little plainer. A more direct translation would say that Satan has asked, and he has obtained by asking, that he may sift you as wheat. Just like he came to God and inquired about Job, and just like he obtained permission from God to test and to tempt Job. Peter, Satan has you in his sights, and he's already determined to test you. He has asked, he has obtained permission to take you to the threshing floor to sift you as wheat. Satan has desired to tempt you. He has set out to prove that you are chaff and not wheat. He believes that when the wind blows in your life, he believes that when the harsh wind of the threshing floor assails you, that you will be blown into the side like the chaff. He has determined to turn his attention upon you and to prove that you are a failure, that you are a fake. He thinks that he has you all figured out. He thinks that he has the key in on your weakness. He believes that after the storm, you are going to join the ranks of those who have shipwrecked their faith. So he has asked, he has begged, and he has gained the opportunity to place you on the threshing floor and loose the wind into your life. But Jesus doesn't stop there. He goes on to say, but I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. But notice what Jesus didn't say. He didn't say, Peter, I've prayed that you'll be spared from the threshing floor. He didn't say, I've prayed that the wind would not ravage your life. No, my friend, what he said was, I have prayed that when you are on the threshing floor and the wind of trial and tragedy tears at your soul, that your faith will not fail. I have prayed that when the wind blows fierce, when failure haunts you and defeat comes to claim you, that your faith in me will be enough to see you through. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. Well, as I say that, I'm sure you are. Trials and tests are just a normal part of life. Every man is tempted when he is drawn out of his own desires. All of us find ourselves over and over again in places where our faith is going to be tested. In places where we are tempted to just throw in the towel and walk away. If you are ever made the attempt to live for God for any length of time at all, you will find yourself in places and times where everything that you believe in is challenged. And in a moment of weakness, you will be tempted to throw it all away and return to the life that you left behind. The threshing floor is where the sifting takes place. The winds of trial, temptations, and circumstances blow forcefully across the threshing floor, and they drive the chaff from the wheat, separating the good from the bad. Jesus announces to Peter that he is headed to this threshing floor because Satan has desired to prove that Peter was nothing more than chaff, that his faith was fragile, that he would be blown away in the coming trial. But God. Every time I read a sentence that says, but God, I just catch myself pausing, smiling. But God, in his infinite wisdom, refused to shelter Peter from the wind of the threshing floor. I thought to myself, why would God do that? Peter's a disciple. He's one of the 12. He's the one that's going to deliver the message. Surely God loved him. And I thought about many times in my own life, if you know me at all, my boys mean the world to me. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for them. But some of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my years of a father is have to step away from taking them out of those things that's going to make them strong. It's tough to watch them go through those things. And it's not that you don't love them as God, we know, loved Peter, but he knew in his infinite wisdom. And that is so hard as a human being to watch someone that you love have to go through those things, but the joy of watching them afterwards and see how they grew and they were strengthened and become closer to God through them. I believe tonight that the threshing floor serves to illustrate the difference in the way that Satan and God view the same set of circumstances. And I got a little tickled when I was going back through this tonight and talking about how you view things, and I've oftentimes, I probably have 6, 7 pair of glasses, and I'm thinking, no, that's the wrong ones. Those are 4 years ago, and this. but I seem to have them. Unlike Pastor, I don't lose them all the time. I don't even know why I get new ones each year. I just keep stacking them up, but then I have to figure out which ones work best. And so I was standing in the kitchen counter before we came tonight, and I was kind of looking. I was like, I don't believe this is the right pair of glasses. And I switched to come. I said, I think those maybe. But it changed my point of view. Each pair, even though they are prescribed for me, it's every year and the older that you get, those become, those don't work quite as well anymore. You'll find out. But so I've often, referred to it or thought about that in how it changes your perspective just by the point or the glasses maybe that you have on. But Satan and God, looking at the same circumstances, but view it totally different. What Satan views as a temptation, God views as a test, and as the difference in that viewpoint. Satan, through the fire of temptation, strives to bring out the evil and carnality that is ingrained in our fleshly nature, while God, in the same set of circumstances, strives to establish you in your faith. The same wind that blows away the chaff also reveals the wheat. The same trial that proves what is wood, hay, and stubble also serves to reveal that which is gold and silver tried by fire. The same wind serves both purposes. It blows away the chaff, but it also establishes the wheat. And Satan desired to place Peter on the threshing floor because he believed that the wind would destroy Peter. But Jesus prayed that his faith would stand. Not that he'd be spared from the trial, but that he would emerge from the trial stronger than what he went in. Not that he would be spared the wind, but that the wind would serve to establish him in his faith. I want to point out something to you tonight. God doesn't stamp out all the evil and all the bad things in our lives. He doesn't hold back the storms or the trials and the temptations. Instead, he uses them to serve his eternal purpose. He works through the trying times, taking that which was intended for evil and turning it for our good. He takes that which is intended to destroy and instead harnesses it for his purpose and for our good. It's a theme that is echoed throughout the scriptures. Out of terrible tragedy, there emerges tremendous triumph. Out of seemingly horrible defeat, there arises incredible victory. God takes betrayal and turns it into blessings. He takes debilitating sickness and he renders it into incredible healing. Child of God, you need to recognize this. God isn't afraid of the threshing floor because he's the master of the wind. The same wind that serves to blow away the chaff also serves to reveal the grain. The same wind that brings out the bad serves to establish good. The same wind that was intended to be a curse under the guidance of the master of the wind becomes a blessing. He works all things together for good. This is why James can say in James chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. What he is saying is, don't be dismayed when tests and challenges come at you from all sides, because the same wind that seeks to strike you down brings your faith to center stage. And if in that moment when everything is questioned, in that moment when your faith is challenged the most, if you can find the strength to stand firm in your faith, the threshing floor is only going to bless you, because the master of the wind will cause it to strengthen and establish you instead of destroying you. It is an eternal truth that it rains on the just and the unjust. I know there's been times in my own life, and maybe you've wondered the same thing, that you see people that just live any old way, and it seems like that, that they're blessed, and you see people that they are living as close to God as they can, and it's affected us all, and you think, what am I doing wrong? I don't understand that. But it rains on the just and the unjust. Good things, happen, but also bad things happen to good people, right? It is an unavoidable fact that time and circumstances happens to everyone. Trouble, tragedies, and trial will visit you at times and in places in your life. But you must grasp this simple understanding. Satan may seek to destroy you, and winds may blow through your life that originate with evil intentions. But God alone is the master of the wind. And regardless of the intentions of hell, the wind serves him and him alone. But if I stand firm in the faith, the glory of God will be revealed, not in spite of the wind, but because of the wind. He is the master of the wind. That's the confidence of a believer. In the middle of every storm or fiery trial that has learned a simple lesson, I serve the master of the wind. It can blow in my life, but it will not destroy me. It can come screaming through everything that I hold dear, but if I stand my ground and keep my faith, I'm going to outlast the wind, and that which was meant to destroy me will instead strengthen me. And when the storm passes and the wind dies down, all that remains is praise and honor and glory at the appearance of Jesus in my life. When you find yourself on the threshing floor, you can rest assured that the wind will be enough to make you aware of the weakness in your life, but it will never be enough to destroy you if you keep your faith in the master of the wind. That's why Job could say this in the midst of all of his afflictions. Job said, "But he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold." He knows where you are. God knows where you are. He hasn't given up on you. He hasn't brushed you aside. He hasn't forgotten you. He knows right where you are, and when he gets done with you, you are going to come forth as gold. I want to step back for just a second as I'm getting ready to close, revisit the text for just a minute. It said, "And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, and that he may sift you as wheat." Simon had some issues that needed to be revealed in his life. In the same hour that this statement is made, Peter had attempted to promote himself to the foremost place among the disciples, arguing that he should be considered the first among their number. Shortly afterward, he vehemently resisted Jesus' efforts to wash his feet. Then, a moment before this statement, made the audacious claim that he would follow the Lord at any lengths, even to his own death. The problem was not his fervency of Peter's desire to be a disciple or to follow Jesus. The problem was his approach to accomplishing that task. Peter was somewhat fixated on himself. The strong, gruff fisherman who had probably never met a physical task that he couldn't overcome had determined in and of himself that he would stand for the Lord by the power of his own strength. You see, Peter's problem was the source of his resolution. He has resolved by his own power that he would serve the Lord. But he's about to learn a valuable lesson. The wind of the threshing floor is about to blow through his life. And when it's is finished, all reliance on himself is going to be shattered. In the most vital moment, when his faith mattered the most, when his master was hanging in the balance, Peter's self-reliance would fail him, and he would curse as he denied the Lord 3 times before running into the darkness in tears of defeat. But the same threshing floor that served to reveal his weakness and bring him to his knees also served to strengthen him in his faith. After the dust settled and the wind dies down and Peter emerges from the threshing floor, he does so with a certain assurity that his strength is not in his own flesh. The Peter that stands on the balcony of Pentecost is not the same brash Peter that wielded his sword in the garden. All because of the wind of the threshing floor. Peter becomes the voice of the 12. He becomes the established rock of faithful. It's his voice that preaches the salvation message in Acts 2, and God employs him to carry the gospel to the Gentiles. And he does it all with the right spirit and a faith that refuses to falter, all because of the vital lesson he learned about himself on the threshing floor of his life. Closing, so when Jesus looks at him that night and speaks those faithful words, and he goes on to say, "But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. And when thou art converted, strengthen thy brother." Not if, but when. When thou art converted, when you come through this, when you get to the other side of the threshing floor, strengthen your brethren. The threshing floor isn't just for your benefit. Others are going to face the same. Your testimony is going to be encouragement for other people. Strengthen your brethren. And remember who is the master of the wind. It looks like we still got a few minutes, but I'll ask Pastor if you want to dismiss. All right. Well, give us Brother Charlie, will you give us a dismissal prayer, please?